have a purple or otherwise known as red cabbage, it's a really nice way to add a bright color to a dish. You could cook cabbage, and I think that's how a lot of people are used to having it. I can show you a couple ways to chop it for cooking, but you can also shred it really finely, and it's a great way to top, tacos or any dish where you want to have some vegetables around that are going to last, have some staying power in the fridge. You want to improve maybe the healthfulness of a pre-made meal, and things like onions, cabbage, root vegetables stay good for a really long time. And so I always have a cabbage around, but sometimes people are a little intimidated by having this big thing. Where to get started? So first you want to look and see if there's any imperfections, brown, black leaves, anything that looks bad, just pull that off. If it's deeper in there, you can just shred off anything that doesn't look good. And then of course you want to clean it. So I've already pulled off most of the outside leaves and cleaned this. So then what you want to do is just to hold it intact, kind of like when we were cutting the onions, cut down through the root end. So that's the first cut I'll make. Helps to have a big sharp knife for this. Okay. And so now we have our cabbage in half. Probably, unless you're making something with a lot of cabbage, you're not going to use all this cabbage in one dish. So you might put in a bag in the fridge, this half, and let's say we want to work on this half. So now we have a nice flat side so we can prevent it from rolling around. Put that down. I'm going to cut right through that root end again. So now we have quarters. You can see if we cut that off, this would all be falling off into pieces, but that root is holding it together. So if you want finely shredded cabbage, if you have a food processor, by all means you can shred it up. I find that the pieces are, there's some big pieces, some small pieces. I don't love how food processors shred cabbage. I like to do it by hand. It doesn't take much time. Curl your fingers under, and then you just can make some nice fine shreds, just moving your knife kind of around in a semicircle. If you see any bad parts, you can always take those out as well. So maybe I want to pull off part of that leaf. Not as good as I thought it was. Right, so we'll keep shredding. And the finer it is, the nicer it is when it's raw. I mean, cabbage can have a strong flavor otherwise. Also can be very chewy, so it's nice to have it be thin. So there we have some nice shredded cabbage, and this is really great in tacos. This is how you would cut it up if you wanted to shred it for coleslaw by hand. I find that, you can buy shredded cabbage for coleslaw or, for other purposes at the store. A lot of times it's a little past its prime, so this is a nice way for very inexpensive to get it super, super fresh. Move that off to the side. And then let's say we want to cut this up in bigger pieces for cooking. I don't cook red cabbage as much. It's fine to do that. A lot of times in recipes, green cabbage is used for a lot of cooking purposes. So, just do what you like or what your recipe calls for. But the way you cut it is the same. So I'll just demonstrate with this. So the first thing I do is I want to cut out that rib, because I don't want to cook that or eat that. So it's kind of cut down. When you have it quartered like that, it's easy to get out the rib. And now you can cut it in bigger pieces. So I am going to put it down like this. You have a little bit of a flat side, so you can put it down like this. It doesn't last long though. It's not too much better than having it on the round side. So I just curl my fingers under, keep them out of the way, and then make some cuts this way. And that last one, just get your hand out of the way by, using it like that. So this is a nice way to roast it. So you can roast it like this, or if let me cut this part. Sometimes you'll roast really big pieces of cabbage if you're going to cook it for longer. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so if you want, big wedges, for example, you can leave the root or stem in, and that will hold it together, but you just might want to encourage your guests maybe not to eat that unless you've cooked it good and long and it's really nice and tender. You might want to check it with a fork to make sure it's tender. You want it to be all very clearly edible, then maybe cutting it in wedges this way is a nicer way. So I just leave it in bigger pieces, and then you can, roast these. So let me cut that up a little bit more. So just a little bit bigger than I did with these ones. Not too much. Some people just have quartered cabbage and do it that way. It really just depends on how you want to cook it. So let me cut this up into squares. So a lot of soups and stir fries will just have like squares or, you know, 1-inch pieces. Since they're flat, they're not a true cube. It's called paisan. Really, anytime you're just using the natural shape of the vegetable and cutting it that way, that's what that word or technique refers to. So again, this would be good for roasting or, you know, stir frying. You could also use bigger pieces or different shapes, whatever you like. And it looks like in the center there's a little brown piece. So again, just keep your eye out for anything that doesn't look like you want, and you'll be in good shape with whatever you choose to cook. Look at that beautiful purple color.